Oh, hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and if you are listening to this, you're going to be, hopefully you're happy to hear this, but this should be right in your inbox. First thing on a Saturday morning, I'm recording this at 9:19 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. I typically record it at like 6 in the morning on Saturdays, but we're doing a family thing tomorrow, and we got to leave early. We're not going to be leaving at 6 in the morning, but we got to prepare for it, and we got to get the kids ready and all that stuff. But we have a fun day planned, and I was like, you know what? Instead of us, instead of me doing the podcast at 6 in the morning and pushing our day back, I decided just to record it the night before, and have it ready to go and just get it out there instead of recording it live on Saturday morning, because that would just kind of push our day back a little bit. So now I'll be able to wake up slow, drink some coffee, and get my day started without without the stress of doing the show. Although I love doing the show, it's fun, but it does delay things in the morning whenever we do have plans. So, but we're looking forward to it. We're going to go check out some sea turtles in the morning. So, typical Hawaii fun. But we do have a little bit of news to talk about. I have a full show slated for tonight. Um, we got a packed episode. There's lots of stuff going on in the wrestling world, and there's some stuff going on in TNA. And our top story is Hammerstone is out of TNA and hitting free agency. He's there's some rumors swirling out there, but he's clapping back hard. So we'll talk about that. Got Dobby the Brain Heenan provided us all the data for the first quarter and going into the second quarter of 2025. And 2025 could be a record-breaking year for TNA at the box office. And then we'll speculate on some AEW releases. There's some new releases coming down the pike, and we'll talk about them. And maybe they're TNA bound. Who knows? They could use some talent, so maybe. And then, of course, we got the full recap from Impact, a rundown of Sacrifice 2025, all kinds of stuff going on. I got this all on my notes here, so I got plenty of notes to get through this podcast because I typically rely on the comment section, but when I don't, I have to have a lot of notes to keep me on track. If not, I'll forget what I have going on. But let's start with the big news that's shaking up TNA. Alexander Hammerstone is officially a free agent as of March 7th, so today. He announced on X that his last TNA match was at the February taping, saying, "Grateful for the opportunities that came my way and excited for what's next." Hammerstone, man, his run did not go the way that I thought that it would go. And I think it could only be seen as a disappointment. And there's probably a lot of reasons why that is. When he came in, he had the Josh match at Hard to Kill last year. I think he was probably signed like a month or two later. I think that's what it was. Well, actually, yeah, it makes sense because it's March 7th, so he's now released. So I think he would have been signed, March of last year. And he came in and he had a series of matches with Josh, and they were mostly were pretty good. I think there was one that was just like okay, but we were all excited that he's in the company, and he had the series of matches with Josh, and he lost that feud. But it's against Josh Alexander, and Josh was one of the top guys at the time, so it made sense that Josh would win the feud. But I think that if you were really trying to get behind a guy, maybe you would have went with Hammerstone there, but he had lost that feud, and then he didn't really do anything significant after that. He was just in like a random series of matches. He started to feud with Jake something at one point, and he just disappeared for a little bit. So like they started this feud where I think it was more of one of those bumping into each other type feuds, and they were supposed to have a match over the summer. I can't remember the event. And then Hammerstone just was gone. He was gone for like several tapings, and nobody knew why. There was some speculation that maybe he was hurt. I think I did see some rumors that it was a concussion. Well, he took to Twitter to explain what that was all about. I guess he had shown up to an event, and the commission did a heart test on him, and said that there was misdiagnosed him with a heart issue. Well, he says he was misdiagnosed. So the commission diagnosed him with a heart issue and wouldn't let him wrestle. but he continued to wrestle for independent companies. He just wasn't wrestling for TNA because independent companies don't do these types of testing. TNA does. And TNA would not let him come back until he got cleared by a doctor. He said he spent $20,000 going to all these different doctors, and he finally got cleared. And then he came back, and he was just kind of like bouncing around. He didn't really have a focus. And then he formed the tag team with Jake Something, who had just turned heel. And I'll be honest, I was pretty excited about that tag team. I thought that they had a lot going for them. And it wasn't just like, I mean, I know that there are these two muscle bound guys, but I really thought that they could have done something with them because they're both pretty good wrestlers. And I even like fantasy booked at one point what they could do with them. And then I was thinking like Ryan Nemeth being connected to them would be pretty good because I think the Nemeth, like his future is as a manager. And in November, he ended up hurting his knee. And he said that he had surgery in December and he missed about 8 weeks. But when you miss 8 weeks, like if you miss, if you miss a weekend in TNA, that's usually like you're missing a month, right? So he missed the Final Resolution show. So he got hurt at Turning Point. He missed the Final Resolution shows and the tapings afterwards. And then he missed the Genesis pay-per-view. He missed the live tapings. And then he was back at these shows. I thought he'd be out a little bit longer, but he was actually back at the latest set of tapings. And we'll see what he's doing next week. But he did clap back because there's a lot of people talking that he's and saying that he's injury prone. And the only injury I ever saw reported was the knee injury, and I think we all witnessed that in real time on Turning Point. But he said just hours after his announcement, he posted again on X in all caps, "Please stop talking about all my injuries. That never happened. Thank you, sincerely, perfectly healthy me." Yeah, he's saying so. A lot of people are saying that he was injured this time, he was injured that time, but there's no receipts to say he was, injured. There was the heart issue that was a misdiagnosis. So that's why he's clapping back against that. So there are two things can be true at the same time, right? A lot of people thought he was injured because nobody was willing to talk about what was happening. He's just now coming out with the information. So people were just left to assume that he's injured. But I remember at the time, he just wasn't working TNA. I think he missed a taping block. He might have missed 2 taping blocks because he was gone for a little while over the summer. And, but he was working these other indies. So we're like, what the hell's going on with him? So I assumed he was injured. I don't think I ever reported that, but I just thought he might have been because it made sense. And then he pops up on the indies like, oh, maybe they had something for him and he got hurt, missed a taping. And they gave whatever spot that they had for him or whatever story they had going for him, they gave it to somebody else. And they were waiting to bring him back. That was my assumption. I didn't know for sure. I never said that I did know for sure, but that's what I thought at the time. But you take a look, he was here for a year and he had the series of matches with Josh. And I thought they were all pretty impressive, but you got to also, that's Josh Alexander, right? But Hammerstone's a good wrestler. He really is. And I think he's a cool attraction. He's got that 80s body that you don't really see in pro wrestling today. It's like it's him, it's Brian Cage, and it's Jake Something. And there's very few other people out there that look like these guys, right? They're these, they're like 6 feet tall and just blowed up to like 265, 275. Just jacked. And he's super athletic and can have good matches. And I felt like this was a waste of a year, man. It sucks. I really like Hammerstone. I thought they could have done a lot better job with him. And they clearly didn't see him as being a big a deal as I saw him because, like if a guy that they were coveted had those issues, they would make sure that when he came back that they were pushing him at a certain level and they would position him at a certain level. But there was one time where he was gone and then he came back and he lost Eric Young in like 3 minutes on a pre-show, right? And then just shortly after that, they put him in that tag team. And so I don't really think they ever saw him at the level that the rest of us saw him. And that's a shame because now that he's gone, they're probably just going to hire another 40-year-old off the WWE scrap heap and try to put him in that position. And I just don't think that person, whoever ends up being, is going to be as interesting as Alexander Hammerstone. I think he's got a cool look. I think he's a cool character. I think he's like decent on the mic. He's not fucking Dusty Rhodes, but I think he's pretty good. Um, and he has good matches. So I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Like he for me, he checks a lot of boxes for like the Mike Gilbert checklist, right? He's fucking jacked, right? And I think that's cool that he's jacked. So where's he headed? I don't know. So I think that he might have been getting paid quite a bit of money. I don't know. Like I don't know that for a fact. I don't have like the data in front of me. I just assume that he's making pretty decent cheddar because when he left MLW, it seemed like there were a couple of companies that wanted him, and TNA like won that deal. And I don't know if that was a Scott D'Amore deal. I remember like D'Amore was there, and Hammerstone didn't come in until after D'Amore was fired. But it's possible that the deal was negotiated earlier, and he just came in a little bit later. But when he did come in, I was like, okay, we got rid of D'Amore, but things are looking crappy. But hey, well, we got Hammerstone. I was excited about that. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know where he's headed. He did have a stint in NXT where he wrestled Obafemi, and he lost. But I thought he looked impressive in that match, and it seemed like he fit there. But their drug testing is like a total joke, but it's more real than everybody else's. Like they're the only company that's actively testing their talent. And so I don't know if they're going to I don't know if they would take him on. So, that's something that's, it's interesting to see where he would end up. I think AEW would be a good landing spot for him, but he could probably just end up right back in MLW, to be honest with you. Because I think they would take him back in a heartbeat, and he was the top guy there. Honestly, he would have stayed a top guy there had he not left. But MLW money is at one level, and you got MLW money, you got TNA money, and you got AEW money, and you got WWE money. He probably wants that WWE money. He's not getting any younger, and so I just hope the best for Hammerstone. It just sucks, man, that this whole thing went south, and I just get the feeling they're not going to replace Hammerstone with like a young up and coming talent. Like, and I've said this name ad nauseum, but to me, the guy you go get is Bad Dude Tito. If you're needing like just a super heavyweight that's super athletic and is intense, you're to replace Hammerstone, you go for Bad Dude Tito Escondido. Like that's the guy. Who they're gonna get? Fucking probably like they'll bring in somebody like Corbin or somebody boring. They're gonna replace Hammerstone with somebody boring, somebody that was just fired from WWE or fired from AEW, not somebody that's hungry that wants it. Somebody just boring and old. That's typically what they're gonna do, and so that's the biggest disappointment. Is like they had a guy who's relatively still young and was hungry, like wants to make it, and I think wanted to be a top guy in TNA, and they just couldn't figure out a way to keep him on the roster, and that sucks. But from TNA's perspective, like whether he was hurt or not, he missed a lot of dates, right? Like he might not have been injured over the summer, but he still missed those dates for whatever reason. It still happened, right? So that's why I said earlier, two things can be true at the same time, right? It wasn't true. It might not have been true that he was injured, but he still missed the dates. So multiple things can be true. So sucks for Hammerstone, but I really like that guy. I hope he makes it onto a big time roster soon. I think he does deserve another shot somewhere. You know what? It's like I hope he just comes back to TNA. Like they need the bodies. They don't have the talent to just be throwing away a guy like Hammerstone. I don't care if he missed the dates or not. Like they should just keep the guy around, but they're not. They've already given up on the guy, which I don't think is smart, but that's what they're doing. So, but anyway.